Greetings, Australia. Welcome back to What Lies in the Sunday Telegraph, a weekly exercise in which we apply critical thinking to Australia's #1 selling newspaper and find out what it is the rich and powerful want you to be thinking about instead of things like, why are they rich and powerful and why aren't you? So, liberating it from its wrapper remains the only newspaper delivered on my street this week, or today at least. So, what do we got on the cover? NRL's idiot code revealed, rugby league to enforce tough new punishments. Also, Jennifer Hawkins tells us, I'm sick with happiness. I don't think she is sick. I think she's pregnant. I imagine we'll get to that. So, rugby league players who misbehave off the field will face some of the toughest penalties in international sport as the NRL tries to salvage its tarnished image. All 16 teams are on board with the new punishment matrix, which outlines major fines and multi-match bans for a wide range of offences, from simply creating a public nuisance to major criminal acts. By depriving clubs of the power to decide sanctions and handing it to the NRL Integrity Unit, the matrix ensure penalties are equal for all players, from rookies to superstars. Some would say maybe the superstars should face harsher sanctions than the inexperienced rookies who are often kids far from home. But on the other hand, it's a lot cheaper to punish the rookies and make examples out of them, isn't it? Just chuck a life on the scrap heap. There you go. Let's have a look at mixed picks. Where do they want us looking at the ads in the paper today? Because it's never based on quality, I guarantee you that. Right, so the 7-day TV guide is the best thing in the paper. So literally the best thing in the paper is, arguably one dying medium, is letting people know when they can see things on another dying medium, when the technology is already ubiquitous to watch things you want to watch, when you want to watch them, without reference to a TV guide. Number 1. Number 2, fill me up please. Great news, long-term weight loss could be as simple as eating more. More lentils and more kale, although kale with some miso butter, fry that stuff up. Healthy meal, bit salty. Good though. Model mum, Jennifer Hawkins, yes, is indeed pregnant. She's happy, feeling nauseous. It means she's still pregnant. Shining light, why the Aurora Borealis is our #1 attraction on our travel bucket lists. It's also an expensive one because you have to go up north of the Arctic Circle. Right, so there's a little feature on paramedics delivering babies. And apparently animal prints are back in the fashion world. There's also a feature on birds. That's one for the school kids, I guess. And the real deal, the barefoot investor, pays tribute to his mate Tim Fisher. It's always great when journalists can pay tributes to mates, or the barefoot investor's more a ad feature writer, but anyway. Right, so now we have dating news of the Wiggles. Page 3, Lockie's love life hits new purple match. A year after splitting with his former wife, Yellow Wiggle Emma Watkins, Lachlan Lockie Gillespie's fan new love, the Purple Wiggle, has moved on and is dating esteemed Australian ballet senior artist Dana Stevenson. The love life of the Wiggles is surprisingly more interesting than you might have thought. Although I did read a New York Times article once that there are groupie issues with mumsies. Doctors did 110-hour weeks in overwhelmed hospitals, horror start. The unwillingness of the medical profession to do proper rostering, largely driven, I suspect, by health bureaucrats trying to do things on the cheap, is, it kills a lot of people. So the league's idiot code for binning sinners features a picture of there he is, Todd Carney. Oh, the Stella lift-out's dropped out. Tragic. Yes, Todd Carney, the man banned from the city of Goulburn, who's also featuring in Sportsbet ads about his love of urinating on himself, and other people. He's in his long and inglorious career, Todd Carney has urinated on numerous people, but thankfully he is equal opportunity. Men, women, himself. Do you know, he barked at a woman in a pub. That was what they didn't like. The pub's quite close to here. It's kind of my local. Do love a trip to the Carney room. Right, 300 Club Franklin's a buddy beauty. Right, so Lance Franklin is still playing football. Now, here's something that's really setting people off. Dog's bum washed in bubbler. A man washing his dog's bottom in a public water bubbler at a Sydney park prompted a horrified resident to film him in the act. Rebecca Laurie, who handed the footage to the Sunday Telegraph, was enjoying a tranquil morning at the park in Rushcutters Bay when she noticed the nauseating act in progress. My 2-year-old loves that bubbler, and I cannot fathom letting her use it now, Ms. Laurie said. It's completely disgusting, not to mention a health risk. I'm sure people who haven't seen the video using that bubbler today. Ms. Laurie said the man was unfazed by onlookers when they called him out on the act. 6 or so people, including myself, told him, but he did not care in the slightest, and actually made the comment that we don't drink from the bowl of the bubbler. I think most people were raised to think that a bubbler should be treated like anything that's been left out. And I do use public bubblers, but I'll let them run a little bit to make sure I've got the clean water. At the same time, like, what's he achieving by washing his dog's bum in the bubbler that he couldn't achieve by taking it home and taking responsibility for it? But I don't know what sort of situation he was dealing with. Neither do you. Okay, selfies at the risk of death. There's new signs warning of people taking selfies off cliffs. Talking up the real estate industry, why would they do that? Money! FOMO has buyers eager as spring looms. Today's spectacular 88.4% auction clearance rate will encourage sellers, with some buyers already feeling fear of missing out. Turn the whole nation into a bloody Ponzi scheme, wreck the economy, but as long as some real estate agents can buy a new Audi, then it keeps this paper rumbling along for another few years before the Reaper comes for it. Then I guess what's the destruction of our nation? These people pretend they care about the country. It's all theatre. They just care about themselves and use their feigned concern for the national well-being to just control people and sell stuff. So the Telegraph's talking about Scott Morrison, who's been invited like a clever school kid to give a presentation to the G7 about his genius plans to stop internet streaming of extremist events. Where that line is drawn, I imagine, will displease everyone at some point in the future. They've discovered 8chan and are mentioning it, which I imagine is only going to drive a significant number of technically illiterate nut jobs who read this paper to 8chan, where they can really get fully red-pilled. I don't particularly like censorship, but deplatforming is the only proven technique for dealing with Nazis. And telling people in a paper where to go find their Nazi stuff seems ill-advised. Page 11, we've got a family story about footballers. Police in morgue bones bungles. Ava Benny Morrison has found a former senior police officer exposing serious failings in the way missing person cases are investigated, including allegations bones were wrongly disposed of. So Fred Nile's still campaigning to make the death of unborn babies a criminal act, which of course, while everyone wants to protect babies, Fred is doing it to try and backdoor abortion prohibition. Because that's what they do. Okay, 2 pages, 12 and 13. I think this news could be bigger than its position deserves, frankly. Flood of money for dry towns, new pipelines, dams and bores. This is towns like Nyngan, Orange Parks, Bathurst, Tenterfield, Wiltshire, Toorawina. And yes, the state government should have been providing infrastructure for its municipalities to continue giving people water. But, good work on doing your jobs. Right, bid to get miracle drug to dying cop. Federal Health Minister Greg Hunt has agreed to personally lobby Swiss pharmaceutical giant Novartis on behalf of a former police officer who was refused access to a life-saving cancer treatment. I have grave reservations about a health system based on personal appeals from the minister on behalf of moderately high-profile people as opposed to a system that works for everyone. So Charles Miranda tells us that a military flying squad to carry out regional peacekeeping, engineering, disaster management and training of foreign troops will be set up by the Australian Defence Force to reassert Australia's leading role in the Pacific. Well, we could stop patronising them and pumping the carbon dioxide into the air so that their countries die. I think that's a little more important to them. We've got a dying wish story. There we go. Just everything's great, isn't it? So everyone's dying, and then we do a little tiny thing to make ourselves feel better about them dying. A dying boy has been granted his last wish to see his favourite footy team win their grand final. Cystic fibrosis. His last wish was to go to Belmore Sports Ground last weekend to see his old team, the under-11 Milperra Colts, in their grand final. So the ambulance service sent 2 officers to accompany him from his hospital bed to Belmore. Tragically, Joe passed away last Wednesday. China dinner postponed. A fundraising dinner with Gladys Berejiklian hosted by the New South Wales Liberal Party Chinese Council has been postponed. Monday's dinner was to be held at Marigold Restaurant in Sydney. Note that down, Marigold Restaurant. These people know where the good stuff is. An organiser of the dinner claimed the event had been postponed as it was inappropriate given the start of the New South Wales ICAC inquiry into Labor Party donations, including those from the Chinese community. Of course, someone also leaked that story to the press, so... Okay, the wives and girlfriends of our cricketers on tour. There's a lot of white lace. The headline is Pouting Posse Wags Cricket, and then accused of putting legs before wickets, although I would note that the Sunday Telegraph is the ones that are bringing prominence to this. So, if it sells newspapers, I guess we're all complicit. Labor staffer first up in ICAC box. There's mention of the US trade war. Australia calls for end to trade war. North Haverbrook warns the Tsar. I don't think Josh Frydenberg's warnings will be heard anywhere. I mean, it's really an exercise in futility for him to even comment, isn't it? Right, so we're told new hoods, headline literally, new hoods to keep a city's growth on track. So this is building new neighbourhoods along the Sydney Metro Northwest. Breathless correspondence from Jack Morfitt. Sydney's newest neighbourhood will begin construction in 2 years as the first of 8 residential commercial developments along the Metro Northwest rail line from Chatswood to Rouse Hill. Each community will see developers bidding to build offices, shops and homes on plots where streets, parks and zoning have already been designed by the state government. Oh, God. Harvey Norman's trying to get us excited about Father's Day. Already we're at the source. Political gossip with Annika Smethurst, Linda Silmalis and Miranda Wood. Love led me to the Libs. Oh, we're humanising Liberals again, are we? Energy and Environment Minister Matt Keane has proposed to his childhood sweetheart, Wendy Quinn. Isn't that terrifying that he's a grown man and a minister and hasn't managed to meet anyone beyond his high school circle? They met as teenagers after being introduced by a mate at a Sydney pub 2 decades and a rekindled romance later. Matt Keane is now engaged to his first love, Wendy Quinn, proposing to the government psychologist on a trip to Blue Mountains National Park. Speaking to the source, so trying to shop the story, the Hornsby MP revealed how it was a threat by his now fiancée, who was a member of the Ride Young Liberals, that led him to join the Liberal Party. I was 19 and working as a cadet at PricewaterhouseCoopers, and she was 18 and studying at uni when we were introduced to the Bayview Hotel in Gladesville, he said. We began dating. An old teacher at Riverview, Mr. Turner, was trying to set me up to join the Labor Party and set up a meeting with local MP John Watkins. But Wendy said she would never speak to me again if I did. I ended up joining the Hornsby branch, that's of the Liberal Party. While the pair went their separate ways, Quinn married and had 2 children, they remained friends, Mr. Keane said. After the March state election, they crossed paths and had a coffee, only to discover that both were single. She's a beautiful woman and a great mum, he said. It just felt right. So he was thinking about joining the Labor Party, but he got talked into joining the Liberal Party, I'm not going to go into the details of their relationship, that's their business, but Jesus. Right, Annika Smethurst is on the health beat. Injection to beat painkiller addiction. Patients addicted to prescription medication will be given free access to a radical medication that can help break the cycle of dependency. Isn't it nice that the pharmaceutical companies, having created a highly addictive painkiller and lied about its addictive properties, now have produced a cure that may help. Boom in babies born in a hurry. Paramedics are delivering babies, so business as usual. Kieran Noonan, a former Home and Away actor accused of breaking a female police officer's nose, has now been cast to play a detective. Ava Benny Morrison on the crime beat. Gosh, that's exciting news, isn't it? An actor has been cast in a role. It's not like there aren't quite a lot of important things happening in the world. So far, we've had nothing on the Amazon rainforest fires, with massive clearing of some of the most important environment to continued life on Earth, so that a quasi-fascist can get his mates more ranching land. All right, page 29 is all about those animal print fashion. That's what's coming. That's what they're offering us this season. It also looks like a lot of very short skirts. The Snitch tells us that lawyer Ruth Parker has been in the headlines since her client's murder conviction was quashed amid the controversy surrounding gangland barrister turned informant Nicola Gobbo. It was the first case Victoria's Court of Appeal has. This is Melbourne gossip that Bernie Morrison and Brennan Hills are trying to bring us. So she's just talking up her law firm. So we're having a bit of a laugh at the misfortune of Mustafa Salami, who I will leave aside what he may or may not have done because the matter's still subject to the courts, but he tried to get bail conditions changed so he could pursue his profession of car racing and was denied. Ha ha ha. Man with funny name, not allowed to pursue his dreams. Justice. I probably wouldn't have approved it either. It's more the laughing at him that I've got the issue with. Right, the DPP wants more money and is whinging to its little mates at the Telegraph. Popstar pledged to tone down prices. Chart-topping Aussie Tony Watson, better known as Tones and I, has capped ticket prices for her shows because she doesn't care about fame or money, only her fans. She plans to keep busking regularly and stage free listening parties and gatherings for her followers. She even shouts her fans dinner. Bet the publicists charge full price though. Apparently, construction site workers are 6 times more likely to die by suicide than through a workplace accident. 5 teens are on the run after alleged crime spree. They've managed to roll a stolen year, so points for them. A story about firefighters fired up to help as nightmare looms. Why are we expecting a nightmare season? Is it because of global warming, or shall we call it a climate emergency? It might be, but the Telegraph isn't going to tell us. It's just going to tell us about the brave fireys who are going to risk their lives trying to contain the damage caused by making Gina Rinehart and the other coal billionaires just that little bit richer. Issues not discussed by the Sunday Telegraph. Rebecca DiGirolamo informs us that Australian researchers will grow brain cells in a dish to fast-track testing of possibly thousands of drugs in the race for a cure for an aggressive terminal form of childhood dementia. So she's reporting on a process for a test for a cure. Every week, the Sunday Telegraph reports on medical science in a particularly vapid and superficial way, as if to throw a little ray of hope, but it never is actually reporting, in my experience reading it, on anything that is actually going to make a difference to people. It's just another distraction. Oh, we're into sport. Alright, so the Aurora Borealis is... Look, if you're booking some Arctic cruise in your golden years, that's not going to be you. In fact, you're not even going to be where there's cameras. This is the best view you're going to get of this. Save your money. Adam Ashley Cooper, I've achieved nothing. No, you haven't, T-Lads. No, you have not. Yes, you have not. Adam Ashley Cooper, definitely a life of limited achievement. And I say that as a Brumbies fan who's still not particularly happy about him moving to New South Wales. Jessica Halloran has got telling us about how great Ash Barty is, and while I agree that Ash Barty is indeed great, I question the newsworthiness of that. Okay, finally on page 78, fiddling as world's lungs burn. The Telegraph has noticed, indeed, the deforestation of the Amazon. And Jair Bolsonaro, look him up. It's an amazing life. It's astonishing someone quite so openly foul has succeeded. I mean, he's not that different from Scott Morrison in some ways, but he's a lot more overtly awful. And he's managed to get himself elected in Brazil, and now he's doing what he always promised to do, which is stuff the environment so a couple of his cronies can make some money. And that's how the world seriously could end if people keep We don't stop this one and a few others, including Australians are no one to throw stones here. The amount of carbon dioxide we're shipping as coal and gas is stunning for a per head of population. We profit from that. It does. We don't profit as much as we should, but there's a lot of money from that pays for things in our society. Then we look down our noses at poor people. Right, there's a little mention of Hong Kong erupts again. Floating nuclear power plant condemned. A Russian one. Right, so it's just some people don't like the idea of a floating nuclear power plant. I don't particularly like the idea. I mean, they're dangerous enough when they're on dry land. Barefoot Investor gives us more on how great Tim Fischer was, and I never had any reason to particularly dislike Tim Fischer. I still don't. He did some good things. He did some things that didn't seem as bad at the time as they seem now, particularly as some of his stances on Indigenous issues. I do think we've had a little bit of over-the-top eulogising, but I mean, give the man his due. He was Deputy Prime Minister, and he did do a significant number of very good things. So there we go. I've thrown some more fuel on that bonfire. Peter Credlin, here we go. A martyr or monster? Who could she be talking about? I think it's George Pell. Oh, there it is. Picture of George Pell. Last week, it wasn't just George Pell in the dock, but our system of criminal justice as well. To its great shame, for many years, the Catholic Church covered up for criminals and put its reputation above the rights of the victim. Other institutions were also culpable in exposing the reach of child abuse in our community through the recent Royal Commission into Institutional Child Sexual Abuse. For everyday Australians who want to trust in the good of people, much of our innocence was lost. There is no doubt that the sex abuse of minors by people in authority is a monstrous abuse of trust that ruins lives. You can feel a but coming here, can't you? Right. But taking sex abuse claims seriously and thinking always of the victims doesn't mean that every complaint is true, or that there should be a different standard of proof when someone is accusing a Catholic priest of a sexual crime. I'm happy for the criminal courts to have the same standard of proof, but maybe when the police decide which crimes to investigate, I'd be treating those with a bit more credibility than in the past. Then we go into a long and tortured defence of Pell, with the whole fig leaf of, one of the judges disagreed. Look, if the Chief Justice of Victoria and the President of the Appeals Court are saying the guilty verdict is safe, then Peter can try and gnash her teeth all she likes, but they just love power. Peter Credlin loves power, and in Pell she saw power and was at an intellectual level seduced by that. Oh God. Right, ScoMo's warning to the slackers. Scott Morrison likes to talk about the Canberra bubble, but he burst it last week with a searing speech to the public service that put them on notice that he expects them to deliver. All 3 lower house seats in the ACT vote Labor, so he's hardly in friendly territory. But as he said, I'm the bloke with my name on the ballot paper, so I make the decisions, and it's your job to get them implemented on time and on budget. Sure, the speech was peppered with the expected caveats to public service ideals, but the message was crystal clear, and it was clear to his ministers too. Gone are the days when undermining and leaking might get you promoted, especially under Morrison's predecessor. Now ministers will find their performances scrutinised and outcomes measured. Some will succeed, and those that fail will be removed. Hallelujah, the Westminster tradition is back. Sorry, is she talking about public servants or is she talking about ministers? She seems a little confused. I would say that almost all of the leaking and undermining is done by ministers and their staff. I'm not saying no public servant has ever played those games, but it's a lot rarer than Peter Credlin would make out. Thumbs up to Tim Fischer. Thumbs down. Businesses like Oricon, who bowed to activist bullying and stopped working on the Adani mine. What's the saying? Go woke, go broke? I hope they don't start laying off workers to pay for the green posturing of management. So, Peter Gleeson, the dancing monkey to the Credlin organ grinder, both called Peter, I know. P-E-T-A, P-E-T-R. No bright sparks to the left's ridiculous energy policy. Its shaping is the political issue of our generation, but the reality is that Australia is botching energy policy. In fact, as our elected representatives struggle for answers, the political hit list on a failure to get energy right is mounting. By which he says we should just capitulate to the coal industry and let them do what they want. Annika Smethurst is bigging up Scott Morrison's G7 trip to France. For the first time in the G7's 45-year history, Australia has been asked to take a seat ringside and observe the goings among the world's most powerful leaders. We have been attending major international conferences, at least since 1919. Piers Ackerman says, I see parallels between Cardinal Pell case and Lindy Chamberlain in justice, which is odd because, as far as I'm aware, Piers had no problem with what happened to Lindy Chamberlain either, but she wasn't a cardinal. It's interesting because child sex abuse is not normally something that Rupert Murdoch tolerates. I mean, he sets his bar pretty damn low, but there always was that as a standard, but now he seems to be devoting a lot of newspaper to casting down on the legal system and defending the reputation of a pedophile. The Telegraph wants domestic violence added to the list of things that will see rugby league players rubbed out. And there's a little salute to Gladys Berejiklian's water plan, which is nice. Warren's having a go at the Wiggles dating lives, calling it Tinder for Wiggles, and that's in the colour chart. I question whether the dating lives of Wiggles is actually useful news. I would say it's distraction. Right, Libby Newton-John sold a house. A bunch of famous people are buying and selling houses. And you should take this as a sign that you too should be buying and selling houses. Angel Has Fallen gets 2.5 stars. Dogman gets 4 stars. Grim but compelling Italian crime drama. The Nightingale apparently will show the true horror of colonial past. And Vince Vaughn and Mel Gibson have teamed up for a movie called Dragged Across Concrete, which gets 3 stars. A hard-boiled crime drama about a good cop who goes bad after spending too much time around crooks and lowlives. Sounds like a very Mel Gibson vehicle, doesn't it? Okay, people still getting married. Alright, they're discussing the ongoing Kanye versus Tay-Tay. Telegraph has decided that Will and Kate have beaten Meghan and Harry to be the favourite royal couple on account of paying for cheap airline tickets, although I noticed the red carpet was still... oh, maybe not, that's a different photo. Anyway, you can't help wondering if the hatred of Meghan Markle has something to do with a whole bunch of social and economic factors that will be ostensibly talked about when the reality has more to do with the fact that she's not as white as some people would like her to be. And, right, we have Elizabeth Moss on the back page fighting against depression. Oppression. Hold on. I'm sure she'd fight against depression if given the opportunity. That's the wade through that sack of crap. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for making it all the way through. I really do appreciate it. And we'll be back next week to see what garbage is being spewed. See you later.